if some of the other CVCA members, Nancy Camo and Sherry Stubbs and Susan Boland, any of those ladies will help you with a question. There are 3x5 cards there. If you have a question for our candidates, the way we're going to organize this forum is that each question will be answered by all the candidates. So it has to be something that's not specific to a given person. And I want to welcome the candidates. Thank you very much for coming up the far north part of the city. Well, actually, we're in unincorporated now, but we're all very close. We support each other. And I especially want to welcome all the voters in Glendale who came out to get informed. And just to let you know, there are 12 people running for the 3 slots on the city council. Zara Sinanian had a prior commitment for a fundraiser, so he's not here. And Edith Fuentes is taken ill, and she wasn't able to make it this evening. And we did collect some material for them, so those are the 2 names on the back table with information from them. And we didn't hear from Shahid Kurlian, but we'll fit him in if he shows up. The way we're going to organize the forum is candidates will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement, and we hope you'll give us an understanding of why you're running and how you plan to work for a better Glendale. And some of us have been to a couple of forums already, probably some of the audience have been to some and will be to some more. So of course we don't want you to contradict what you've told other people, we'll catch you on that. But if you'd like to find something unique and different that you want to add, amplify your positions, we'd appreciate you bringing some uniqueness here. And we want to caution you that we don't really want any personal attacks. We'll ask you to not do that. We don't want you to criticize the other candidates or complain about them. It's your ideas we want to hear and to help us make our decisions. And our timekeeper, Grant Michaels, the gentleman, is also a member of our steering committee, sitting in the front. And he'll hold up the yellow page for a 30-second warning and the red page for stop, and we'd really appreciate if you respected those limits. And after the opening statements, we'll have questions from our CVCA members and from the audience. As I said, there are pencils and little 3x5 cards out there, so you can ask your questions, and if we have time, we'll get to them. And we're interested in things that are of particular interest to the north part of the city. And if time permits, then we'll have a 1-minute closing statement from each candidate. And I want to caution the candidates to keep in mind, one of the things voters are likely considering is your ability to work together with one another should you become elected. And we ask you, because we don't have any amplification in the room, the candidates will have to project. And we'll ask you to put all your cell phones and other electronic devices on silent or vibrate so we're not interrupting each other. And I mentioned the candidate literature is available on the tables back there to help them. And on our back table there, we have information I printed out from the city's website with the city attorney's explanation of measures A, B, and C, that will also be on your ballot, and the arguments for and against measures A, B, and C to help you decide how you want to vote on that. And a little bit, there's also, just in case you recently moved or just turned 18, there's a couple, I happen to have them, voter registration forms, so please don't forget to take them if you know somebody in your family who's just turning 18 and wants to register to vote. The last day to register to vote for the April 2nd election is March 18th. So encourage, and if you have any new neighbors, encourage them to re-register and vote. And also on the back table is a petition for those who are against the 710 extension and wish to express that information, and some housekeeping rules. The main library is closed, as I'm sure you've noticed, so we have to, when we're over, please exit through these meeting room doors. If you happen to exit through the hallway door, it triggers an alarm, and our poor librarian will have to come back down from her home in Simi Valley, Santa Clarita, I think, and reset the alarm. So please do that. The restroom is in the hallway, and there's a key that, if you need it, the key will be at the little table there. And just please remember to bring the key back out with you, or you will be the last one that gets the facilities this evening. And I think that's, oh yes, I've been asked to make an announcement on Thursday, March 21st at some very early time in the morning. Let's see, 6:30 a.m. is the Glendale Mayor's Prayer Breakfast, the 50th annual. Pat Boone is the keynote speaker, and it is at the Glendale Civic Auditorium, 1401 North Verdugo, and there should be some flyers for that back there too, if anybody wishes to participate in that. And thank you again for coming, and with that, I'll turn it over to Sharon Rangachari.
I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Boone at the airport one time. Nicest man, just really nice guy. Anyway, so we'll start with the opening statements. I'm going to start in alphabetical order this direction. I won't always go this direction for questions, but we'll start with Mr. Barnes first. That's a 2-minute opening statement, please.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Love to be up here in the free country of La Crescenta. Anyway, I'm Rick Barnes. I'm running for City Council, of course. The reason I'm running is because I believe that we need a little bit more common sense with what's going on. And being in La Crescenta, you guys have a little different government agency operating for you, and that is Los Angeles County. When you're into Glendale, you have a whole different set of rules that take place. You have our schools, most of our schools are here. You also have Crescenta Valley Water. Those in Glendale Water and Power, there's a difference between those two. And we have some of our Crescenta Valley clients, citizens, residents, have both water, and then they pay a tax for the sewer lines over here in Glendale. So those are things that you do get affected by. You're going to get affected by the fact that is the city of Glendale operating and helping with the schools up here? Yes, they are, but are they doing enough? Those are questions that come up, and I believe that in common sense that we have to make certain we're listening to you. Even though you may be in La Crescenta, we still have the same sheriff up here up to Glendale, but the high school is operated by the sheriff. And there's a lot of things that happen, and I have to say that working with Crime Stoppers program, we actually did get involved with this La Crescenta area with how to stop and how to prevent some crimes. As a matter of fact, there was a terrible incident that occurred up here, and it was part of the Crime Stopper program that I actually helped co-found back in 1994. It's an international program, and it has really helped our police department. As a matter of fact, the police department was able to solve in the very first 3 weeks of the program where someone called in and said, hey, there's going to be a felony occurring, and these guys are going to do a home invasion. That home invasion only cost $250 tip, but they went in, the federal government was there, the FBI, the guys with the guns, the ATF was there, the LA County Sheriff and Glendale PD. All of it came from a tip. That program is now Los Angeles County Regional. We get over 600 tips a month on that, over 350 arrests. That was a program that started right here in Glendale. Now, you may not have heard about it, but we have worked for over 17 years to have that occur. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll stop.
Thank you. Mr. Black.
Hi, Jefferson Black. I grew up back east, went to prep school, graduated from Tulane, started a small business, came out here, and I'm a teacher now. I've been here for almost 20 years. Got involved in Neighborhood Watch, and I was a member of the Adamsville Homeowners Board Association. About a year ago, I overheard some lady in a Trader Joe's in Burbank, mocking Glendale, making fun of it, and it was kind of disheartening, and that was kind of the catalyst that wanted me to do something and give back. And Glendale, I didn't even know this, but it has a rich history. It has John Wayne grew up in Glendale, Amelia Earhart flew in and out of it, and DreamWorks, and the great diversity. And I just want to bring pride and integrity back to the city, and with your help, I'd like to make it happen. So, thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks to the Far North Glendale Association for hosting us and organizing all of you to come out tonight. There were a lot of us. This is the second time we've been up here in as many nights because a bunch of us were at the meeting last night organized by this group dealing with the 710 alternatives. And it's good to see everybody come out and be engaged on a number of different issues, but certainly it demonstrates your commitment to the issues in our city and the things that affect the quality of life here. And the quality of life is one of the things I wanted to talk about as a city council member when I'm elected, because those are kind of reasons why we all live in wherever part of Glendale that we live. You people in La Crescenta are a part of the overall part of Glendale, but you have that edge. That edge is, yes, we are La Crescenta, we want to be a part of Glendale, but we want everyone to understand that this is a very special community for all of us, and that's why we've chosen to live here. I think whoever goes on to represent you as a city council member needs to understand that this group wants to be a part of the overall part of Glendale, but you also want everyone to recognize that this is a wonderfully special part of the area. I've worked as the city's neighborhood services administrator for the past 23 years. My background is in public administration, and I'm proud to tell you that I'm proud of my career in public service. My wife, before I met her, was a Foothill resident. She lived in one of those famous La Crescenta stone houses, and she kind of goes after me sometimes about why our house isn't quite as historically significant since we got married. I want to tell you that if I'm elected, I want to focus on fiscal stability for our city, managing our budget as all of us would manage our budgets at home, just recognizing there's a lot more zeros on the end, and working to preserve and protect the quality of life that we all expect in the city of Glendale. Finally, the last thing is we get phenomenal services in Glendale. I want to make sure that that continues. It's one of the reasons why we live here rather than anywhere else. I'm the last name on the ballot. Whenever you go to vote April 2nd, go to the bottom and vote that name.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman.
Good evening. I'm Laura Friedman, and I'm very proud to have spent the last 4 years representing you on the Glendale City Council. I came to Glendale politics several years ago. I have been working around Los Angeles County as a volunteer for the Los Angeles Conservancy, working for historic preservation all around Los Angeles County. The built environment, protecting our neighborhoods, and our open spaces has been for a very long time really important to me. So several years ago, I applied to be on the City of Glendale's Design Review Board. And I spent 5 years on that board, chairing it for 1 year, really trying to make sure that our residential neighborhoods were not overdeveloped or inundated with out-of-scale developments. And that brought me to being more interested in just overall Glendale issues. So when I ran 4 years ago, I ran because I felt that the city hadn't really used arts and culture as a way to bring economic development into the city. I looked around and said, why do myself and my friends go to Pasadena a lot of times when we want to go out, rather than right here in Glendale? And it's because the city for a while hadn't really focused on the arts and really making the arts a reason why people will come to our city besides just retail. So that's something that I've been focusing on in the last few years, as well, of course, as fiscal responsibility. Because when I stepped in 2009, the recession just hit. And we spent the last 4 years dealing with pension reform, making real strides towards making a more sustainable system with our employees, balancing our budget, which we have to do every single year, without robbing from other agencies, the way that this state does and the federal government does. We have to be balanced. And I believe that we've very successfully been able to make cuts and make efficiencies in the government of Glendale in ways that have really kept the quality of life that you expect and the services that you expect at a very high level. We are still collecting the trash, trimming the trees, delivering excellent services to our residents despite this huge economic downturn. I think we're on a great track, and I want to stay on City Council to continue on that path. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. You're here because you're interested and you're engaged, and I really look forward to the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kazazian.
Yeah, my name is Aram Kazazian. I'm a licensed architect in the state of California, and I practiced here in the city of Glendale since 1974. I do have 6 kids, and I'm very much concerned about the city's, where it's going. Our expenses have skyrocketed, and that's a big concern for me. I'm also concerned about the landfills. I'm concerned about the schools, because the schools, all the resource officers have been removed. Most of them have been removed, which is a big concern to me. That's a big problem. Utility rates has been the most interesting part to me, because I've been studying the utility rates for the last 10 years, and I've gone over and over the city council. In fact, 3.5 years ago, I put in special documentation. I took paperwork in. I turned it in to council that I had received from Imperial Irrigation System, as Glendale was going to lose millions of dollars in utility, and those documents weren't followed. They said, no, we're more careful. City manager turned around and said, well, we're more careful. We don't practice what other cities do. And what happened? We lost over $100 million. And Steiger was removed. Steiger removed, and we never exactly have all the details yet. Hopefully someday we'll have the details. I'm hoping to get those details out because I knew we're gonna lose those monies. That's why your utilities rates went up, especially commercial buildings. Remember, residential went up about 58%, but commercial buildings went up almost 649%. And people don't realize that meter reading charges skyrocket. I'll get into that later again. So those are the big concerns I have. Youth centers are very important. My kids are in the Boy Scouts and they play basketball every day. They have an after-school program. We have cut most of those out, and it's not a fair situation. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kadikian. Yeah, I apologize if I.
Kadikian, that's fine. Hello, good evening, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Roland Kadikian, and I've been a resident of Glendale for about 15 years. And the reason I'm running for city council is because I got concerned about the finances of the city. My main objective is the finances of the city. I know most of you see me as somebody new, so I'd like to take a little bit of this time to introduce myself and get you to know me a little bit. My career started as an aerospace engineer. After I graduated with that degree, I went and worked for Jet Propulsion Labs in Pasadena. And you all know Jet Propulsion Labs are the people who send rockets from here to the moon or from here to the Mars. And what I learned there is if your mission wants to be successful, you have to have a plan. You can't just shoot the rocket and aim for the best. You have to have a plan, a long-term plan. You have to be ready for contingencies. Things are going to go wrong. You have to have some backup. You have to have some savings on the side. And finally, your numbers must add up. You should have enough fuel to get you there. So that was what I learned at Jet Propulsion Labs, and that brings me to Glendale here. Those are the same problems I see with Glendale. Glendale is having financial difficulties. You all know that. For the last 2 years, we've had budget deficit that we dealt with by cutting services and cutting employees. That is not a long-term plan. The plan that is being implemented at this point is we have the money, we spend it. We don't have the money, we don't spend it. That is not a long-term plan. We need a better plan that saves money when we have good money coming in. After that, I became a bankruptcy attorney, and my job was helping people with financial difficulties. So what I hope to do, if you choose to elect me, is to have a long-term plan for Glendale, be ready for contingencies when we are doing good. I want to save some money aside and live within our means. Our numbers have to add up. What we make should be as much as we spend. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mohill.
My name is Mike Mohill. I'd like to thank this association for inviting me. I'm a 58-year resident of Glendale, 35 years in Glen Oaks Canyon, and a Vietnam veteran, retired businessman. This election is about fixing our government gone out of control. A city budget that has doubled from approximately $400 million in 2000 to over $800 million today, and yet city services did not improve. A city debt increased by more than $300 million, another $35 million GWP bond debt approved by the incumbents for taxpayers to pay. Unfunded and unsustainable pension obligations that have grown by over $600 million and counting will eventually drive our city into bankruptcy. Overdevelopment, congestion, gridlock in our downtown area in order to increase property taxes to fund the unfunded salaries and pensions of our city employees. A city government that is overcharging residents, businesses, and schools on the most basic city services, water and electricity. Let me repeat myself. On the most basic city services, water and electricity is the government that we need to change with new leadership and direction. And finally, the incumbents have approved every type of fee and tax brought before council. And right after this election, our two incumbents will raise the electrical rates astronomically, which they postponed under public pressure until after the April election. Let me remind you, folks, they postponed it this year in 2012 to after the election so they could raise it astronomically after April. Thank you. My name is Mike Mohill, number 7 on your ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Milano.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Herbert Milano. Some of you here know me and probably have seen enough of me during the past, 10 years, as I've approached and talked before the City Council on just about every issue having to do with the city's finances primarily, concerned about the quality of life issues. I really appreciate coming to this area, particularly because there are so many individuals that I've gotten to know, many of you who voted for me 6 years ago, and many of you who still kept in touch with me as your concerns about your community were basically brought to my attention. This is a section of the city that for a very long time has been kind of like a stepchild to the city of Glendale primarily. There are still areas within the La Crescenta area, like Dunsmore, for example, as you go up north, where the roads are cracked, they haven't been updated in decades. You have some very nice homes, you have individuals who really are concerned about their families and their future. But oftentimes I see that the main concern has been that there is a city government that still has not changed very much in the last 6 years, not for many of these residents. We are sitting here today in what I think is one of the most fabulous libraries and government expenditures that we have in this area. We haven't had this kind of investment in new libraries in Glendale in a long time. In fact, what we have done in the city of Glendale is cut libraries, cut library hours, and hit individuals where they hurt the most. I have gone to the central library after they cut the hours and see a long line of individuals unemployed, waiting to get into the library so they can go and look for a job on the free internet. And we cut those hours. An example of good government is the involvement of the residents in this area who brought this library.
I'm sorry, could you wrap up? I'm sorry.
Oh, I think
See your time.
I really appreciate your time, and I hope that today you will have your eyes open to some of the issues that are really relevant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Najarian.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ara Najarian. I've been on the City Council for 8 years. I've been the mayor for 2 years. I've got a great little opening speech here that I usually discuss and I read through in some of the other forums. I could tell you about how great Glendale is and about our great traffic safety programs, about how we're protecting the hillsides, how I worked on an ethics and campaign contributions limit. But there's one issue, a burning issue that affects this community, that makes all the other issues pale. And you've heard it before. Some of you are wearing buttons. It is the 710 tunnel. Maybe you saw me last night. I'm very passionate about this. If the 710 tunnel gets built and the trucks from the Port of Long Beach continue their trek northbound through the 210, through your backyard, your quality of life is going to change like it never has before. Your health is going to change like it has never changed before. Your peace and quiet at night will change like it has never changed before. There is one issue that this community should be rallying over, and that is stopping the 710 tunnel. I sit on the board of the MTA Board of Directors. I am fighting the fight against 12 directors who are hell-bent on putting that 710 tunnel through. If I am off the Glendale City Council, I am off the MTA board. And you might as well start putting for sale signs on your property, because the noise and the pollution and the vibrations are going to drive you all crazy.
Thank you. Again, there are cards and pencils for anyone to ask questions. I have a few, and I will fill in, trust me, I will fill in where if I run out of cards. I never am short for words. To all of the candidates, and I'll start, let's see, I'll start with Ms. Friedman, go this way, and we'll make a nice circle. If you have experience with the city, or if you don't have experience with the city, how does this help you? Go Laura.
This is a 1 minute question.
1 minute?
This is 1 minute, yes.
Well, I'll tell you, when I went on the council 4 years ago, I thought I knew a lot about the city, but let me tell you, you have so much to learn when you go on a city council for the first time. I mean, it takes about a week to even know where the bathrooms are in City Hall. It's a big learning curve. And it's taken me, it took a long time to get up to speed, although I did feel, unusually prepared going in because I have been on a city commission for 5 years. But you learn that for every issue that sounds easy, it's never that easy. As much as we'd like to spend money on all sorts of things, you also have to know where to spend that money. As much as you want to not raise utility rates, you also have to figure out how to pay for your infrastructure. Everything has a trade-off. I like hearing when candidates say that they want to do things differently. What I want to hear are what the specifics are. Because I know that through my time on city council, some of my ideas changed, and you have to be open to that. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to open your mind and to listen to what the staff has to say who've been there for a long time, to listen even more closely to your constituents, because you have all of a sudden a lot of people looking to you for answers and for help. And all of that's what makes it a really wonderful experience. So I hope that answers the question. I feel like I've learned a lot, but I still have more learning to do and more listening to do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Engel.
Thanks, Sharon. It's interesting coming out of being a retired employee with the city of Glendale and for 2 other cities and for a county, and having a degree in public administration. I think that's going to help with the academic and operational knowledge that I would bring that I don't think you're going to see with any of the other candidates. I agree with Ms. Friedman. I think there's anything, until you walk through that door the first time, you're not going to understand any of the nuances that go on with that. I can tell you from doing the candidates forum and also from working as a neighborhood services administrator for years and years and years, what seems like a very simple issue on the surface frequently is not. And I think what the base experience that I bring to that is the knowledge that is a true testament. That is absolutely true. Nothing is that simple. And what I think I want to express to you most strongly is that I'm able to, I think my experience is what it allows me to kind of delve into that and say, all right, what are the underlying issues? Ms. Friedman kind of talked about that a little bit, but I think that's important, what I would bring to you.
Thank you, Mr. Black.
Yeah, hi. Well, after I'd spent the first week trying to find out where the bathrooms were, I would, no, I am new to politics. The good thing is I don't come with any preconceived notions. I don't have any baggage, and I don't owe any political favors from a past, term. I think that, I don't think you'd have to be a CEO or a current City Hall member to actually do this job. I mean, the position is an important, honored position, but it's not rocket science. I mean, no offense. But I think to get the job done, it just requires a diplomatic problem solver, and that's what I am. And I would treat everything fairly and honestly, considering what's best for the city as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barnes.
Good evening, everybody, once again. The reason I can see this is that for over 30 years, almost 40 years, I've been going back and forth to the city with my clients that love private property. How many of you live in Glendale? Are really Glendale? So the rest of you are county. Okay, county, go down to the city of Glendale and take your property and see how long it's going to take to remodel. And you in Glendale, if you haven't done it, and you haven't gotten there to see the private property rights taken from you, it's about time that you understand that in Glendale, it could be 2 years for you to build something. That's how difficult it is. And the other part is that you never get an answer over the counter. You go to Los Angeles, you go to Burbank, you can get an answer that day to install windows. You can get an answer that day to get your roof on. You can get it that day to get your plumbing done. If you're in Glendale, forget about it, okay? There's a difference. And the difference is there's no accountability for the people sitting at the desk because they're being told by the city councilman, you're going to do it our way. And there's rules there that get changed constantly. And as a real estate broker, we're constantly having to deal with transfer disclosures that affect you as a property owner and the freedom that you have. You in Locker Center, you're lucky to have freedom of properties. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see, the other end, Mr. Najarian.
Could you repeat the question again?
Yes, I was going to ask if you want to wait again, because it's a little long after we get to the middle. It sounds like a game of telephone, doesn't it? If you have experience with the city, or if you don't have experience with the city, how does this help you?
Well, I do have experience with the city. I served on the city council for 8 years. Prior to that, I served on the Transportation and Parking Commission for about 6 years. And I can tell you that being a city council member is a very difficult job. You do have to balance so many interests. You have to balance financial concerns versus quality of life concerns. And don't forget that any action on the city council requires a vote of 3 to pass. You have to work well with your colleagues. You need 3 votes. Even if you have the best idea for the city, you need 2 others to support you. So I think it's very important to have experience either on a commission or on the council. I think coming into the council cold is a very difficult thing to do, and you're subject to external influences by the city manager and other staff that you may not be able to resist.
Thank you. Mr. Milano.
I never expected to start one of my answers by agreeing with Mr. Najarian. But since for about 12 years I've been participating and attending the commissions and the city council meetings and the budget sessions. And part of the problem that I see is that invariably, even the current incumbents did not show up at the budget study sessions prior to being elected, prior to running for office. Because if they had, they would have seen the significant negative trend in terms of the city's expenditures that were growing at an unsustainable rate way back, 2002, 2003, 2004, well before they got elected. It does matter to know the city. I've attended hundreds and hundreds of meetings, and believe me, even if I ran 6 years ago, now it is even more so. Look, having the experience of what happens with the finances, with a comprehensive annual financial report that tells you the truth of what has occurred is super essential. Because if they had, we would not be in the financial pickle that we are today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mogill.
As a concerned citizen of Glendale, I couldn't agree with Mr. Milano more. He's been to City Hall more times than I've been to City Hall and GWP and the budget. I've spent many times, many hours. I've written articles in the newspapers, CV Weekly, Glendale News Press. I've attended council meetings, and I've talked about the issues to the public. And I try and make it simple. It's not sophisticated, so you can understand the difference between a pension and Social Security. As a concerned citizen, having been experienced at City Hall, I don't walk in cold. I know the issues, because I've talked about the issues to the public for the past 6 years in my writings and my many talks before the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask the candidates again. We don't have amplification, and I'm not sure if everyone's hearing you clearly in the back, so do project, please. Mr. Kadiki.
Well, being a rocket science doesn't hurt either. So I have 2 careers that I bring with me. First one is being an engineer. And even though I haven't been involved too much in the city, I know numbers. I am a numbers guy. Reading the financial report is not a problem for me at all. I am also a bankruptcy attorney. I've dealt with the finances of many people and many businesses. I know when they add up, and I know when they don't add up. That is what I can bring. As an attorney, I can negotiate, and I have negotiated many settlements and agreements. And I can do that as well here. I can work with people. That is the whole purpose of an attorney who settles. He negotiates things. That is what I can bring to City Council. It doesn't require rocket science, but my basics are there, and I can do this job.
Thank you, and finally, Mr. Kazazian.
Yes, I can run the city. I have no problem with it. I served for 6 years on a member of building commission for City of Glendale. I started back in 1974 in Glendale, doing business in Glendale. I was here in 1971, 74 I started. I was appointed to the member of building commission. Then from there I was appointed as a member of board of zoning adjustments. I was on it for 8 years. I know what goes on, what happens in the back. And I know all the ends of it. I've kept track of all Glendale water and power issues, and I do have that. I'm a number guy too. I pay very much attention to numbers, and I know that our revenues have gone up by $120 million in the last 4 years, and our expenses have gone up by $158 million in the last 4 years. Okay, are we better off today than we were 4 years ago? No, we're not. Okay, we have many problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will start with Mr. Engel. Tell us if you're familiar with the Rockhaven complex, what you know about it, and what your thoughts are for its future.
I'll start with yes, no, yes, and no. Yes, I am familiar with the Rockhaven complex. I'm familiar with the history behind it. You can say it's a rich history, but in some cases it's a tragic history for the types of uses that it had and the significance that it had to the foothill community. People don't always recognize, unless you're a person like me who suffered from asthma for their entire lives, is that this was the sanitarium capital of the United States. If you had respiratory issues in the early 1900s, where did you come to survive those or to recover from those? You came to La Crescenta and to the balcony of Southern California, and we were known for that. Rockhaven was known for that. I think for the future, I think we've got a little bit of a difficulty right now. I think we've got some financial issues in front of the city. I think we were wise to purchase the property, to land bank it for the future. I think we need to preserve and protect it at its current heritage. When we have money in the future, I think it needs to be developed as a community facility to serve Glendale and the foothill communities.
Thank you. Mr. Black.
I'm not familiar with that issue. Do you want to educate me, or should I just pass?
No, I
All
could
right.
probably just pass
Okay.
if you're not familiar. Mr. Barnes.
Again, good evening. You know what? I'm enjoying this. The Boy Scouts are here, and that's you got to learn. You got to learn young, and we need to keep having people come in. Rockhaven is a really opportunity for the city. However, I have a question. We paid a lot of money for Rockhaven, and yet down the street we gave up 24,000 square feet without putting it with a national real estate or the real estate associations, and it sold at an auction for under a little over $400,000. It was over 20,000 square feet. Why do we sell it in a down market? Why do we do things like that? There's a transparency that you spend millions of dollars for Rockhaven and you let something else go in a down market. I mean, something's wrong here. And that's why I'm running for city council, is that not only Rockhaven, there's great properties here. How are we protecting them, and how are we making certain it's for the future? And when we give away some of our other properties to the Santa Monica Conservatory, we lose the right of ownership. And that also comes a question to me, is why are we giving it away from our treasury? And that's our hillsides and Rockhaven, things like that. We all need to be involved in it and have decisions as part of it, not just the city council members. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Najarian, do you need me to repeat the question as we go along? Or?
It wouldn't hurt if you were just
Okay.
here.
So tell us, are you familiar with Rockhaven, what you know about it, and what are your thoughts for its future?
Okay. Well, let's give credit where credit is due, ladies and gentlemen. The purchase of Rockhaven was largely driven by my former colleague, John Drayman. He recognized Rockhaven as one of the last examples of a sanitarium, the type of services which this valley was well known for. His vision, which I think he imparted on many of us on the council at that time, was to preserve it as best we can, and at such time that we have the funds to begin programming to restore the facility and to locate the headquarters of the Crescenta Valley Historical Association in that building. So I do support that at such time as the funds are available, but the good thing is it has been preserved from the wrecking ball, and I think there was a plan for 80 or 100 condominiums at one time. I'm glad that it has been preserved.
Thank you. Mr. Milano?
Many of you who are aware of this particular purchase, the city borrowed $8 million from the reserves to take an opportunity to buy what at the time was thought as a really good, solid bargain. And I admire the whole idea of a community pushing towards getting open space. This particular area, where at least the area where the Rockhaven is, has about 4 acres per 1,000 people. Down in the center of the town of the city, we have less than 0.1% acres of green space per 1,000 people. And so my hope is that when we look at issues about the city, that we look at it all over the city, not just in any one particular area. So even though I applaud the whole idea of going for open space, I think that because we are elected at large for the whole city, we have to take a look at those areas that are significantly deficient in parkland in the rest of the city. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Mr. Mohill.
Rock Haven, $8.3 million with no blueprint. That's what I always had the problem with. City council approved a plan with no plan. If I bought a house, piece of real estate, I want to know what I'm going to use it for. Let's see, Rock Haven was going to be a library, art place, museum, a banquet hall, and we spent over $8 million for this piece of real estate, and we're spending money today just to maintain it. What kind of vision did the city council have when they purchased this piece of real estate with no plan? It's going to cost more than $8 million to purchase it. It's probably going to cost double that amount, if not triple that amount, to make it something. And even today, nobody knows what they're going to do with this piece of real estate. We just don't want anybody to use it. We've taken it off the tax roll, so we're not getting anything out of the deal. So why did we purchase this thing without a blueprint? I wouldn't buy a house without a blueprint, would you? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohill. Mr. Kadikian?
Well, I'm going to have to pass on this one. I'm not very familiar at all with Rockhaven Complex, but I am for open space. And if this was a good opportunity for the city to purchase and preserve an open space, that would be a positive development. But on this particular topic, I do not know much. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. And when I don't know something, I say it. Okay? So that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Kazazi.
Yeah, Rock Haven is a very interesting property. The reason it's interesting, my cousin purchased that property many, many years ago. And I don't remember how many years ago, 20-some years ago. And he wanted to put a senior housing project out of it. He wanted to make that, preserve it to be a senior housing project, just the way it is. He wanted to protect that land. If the city would have allowed them to do so, we wouldn't have had to spend any money in maintenance, and that would have been still a senior housing project, and would have been part of Ararat Homes, and that would have been great. And then after that, he got fed up and tired. He donated the property to another organization. That way it was sold such a high price.
Thank you. Friedman.
I am very familiar with Rock Haven, and I think the city made the right move to buy it. As far as I know, it's the last remaining sanitarium in the Crescenta Valley, and that is what built this area, and that's what caused this area to be noticed and developed. And sometimes cities have to step up to preserve their living history. As far as I know, that property was going to go under the wrecking ball, and there was really no alternative, and I think they made the right move. And they knew they were going to do something with it in the future. They knew when they purchased it, and I wasn't on council then. They didn't have the funds at that time to do anything, but they wanted to save it. They wanted it to keep from being demolished. They did the right thing. I envision an activity for it where we can bring in our historical society and also our nonprofits. I hear from nonprofits all the time that they don't have places to meet, they don't have homes, and that's something that we can provide on that site and keep it open to the community, open to our nonprofits, and support them while having a place that represents the history of the Crescenta Valley. So I think it has a future and a bright future. Let me also say that people have talked a lot about reserves, but those reserves were used for things like purchasing Rock Haven, purchasing land that was going to become Oakmont 4, preserving open space all around Glendale. So we have to keep that in mind when we talk about reserves being spent down.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Mr. Black. Oftentimes I'll hear, I was on the Crescenta Valley Town Council for 7 years. I'm very active in our community association here. We hear all the time that we would like restaurants in our area. Also, other businesses on Foothill. What do you think the role of the city council is in promoting businesses and particularly restaurants on Foothill Boulevard? And start with Mr. Black, please.
Well, that's an interesting subject because in Glendale we don't get the fancy restaurants where I live in southern Glendale. We get like Carl's Jr.'s, the Beef Bowl, and I always wondered why we have like 8 Carl's Jr.'s in like 2 square miles and we can't have more input onto what goes there. Yes, I think there should be some sort of decorum as to who gets in and who doesn't. It shouldn't just be a beef bowl or something that's kind of an eyesore. And what was the question, how you attract the business?
Well, what role do you think the city council can play in attracting business to Foothill Boulevard, promoting businesses, and as I say, particularly restaurants that we hear so often about?
Well, just that. First of all, with the variances, and if they're gonna get a special deal and not have the parking spots that they should have, that's an issue, and the council shouldn't bend with that. Because if you're gonna have a restaurant and everyone's got to park any which way, that could really, I mean, there's certain restaurants I won't go do in downtown Glendale because the parking situation is so strange. But yeah, I would say, work with that, and the council can do more to get a higher
Thank you.
quality.
Mr. Barnes?
Hi, I'm not too familiar with Foothill Boulevard. I only had a property for sale for 3 years, and it was stopped because it may have been too high. Since then, I was on the North Glendale Planning Committee, and now Foothill Lumber, that one-story building, if it was rebuilt today, you could not rebuild it. That's the restrictions that our city council and has enjoyed making the changes to. They want to see Foothill Boulevard look like 1950 Sutherland, Iowa, or Oklahoma. They want to keep it the same way that it is today because of parking restrictions. How do you enjoy trying to build something or increase something when it's so restrictive in Glendale? So you have to look at the fact that and there's been restaurants that have been there, they've gone out of business. Why? Because there's no vortex of energy. There's no center energy taking place up here. And it's because of the restrictions that are being put on the business owners and the property owners on Foothill Boulevard. So, I mean, when I look at it, if you don't start looking at making some changes and getting some energy and making it easier for people to build up here, you're not going to have it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Najarian?
Thank you. First off, I'd like to say, I'm going to stray slightly from your question. Let's drop down into Montrose. I would like to bring a Bob's Big Boy into where the current empty Rocky Cola space is. And I have made some inquiries with their corporate headquarters in the Midwest. I'm hoping that we can get some activity on that. Next, I would like to bring in, it's clear that there's been a huge demand for a family-type restaurant, an Applebee's type, or a Coco's, or a Chili's, as best as we can. The owners of the old Gerard 2 restaurant, they want to turn that into a pizza, a Straw Hat, I believe. They experienced some difficulties, and we have worked with our planning staff to make sure that they don't be subject to the strict codes that a walk-up restaurant has. The other way is to get out there. Every year we go to Las Vegas to find the restaurants that are willing to come in, and I'm willing to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Milano?
If you want to find the problems in Glendale having to do with restaurants, which is a very risky, high labor intensive, high investment intensive type activity, you're going to find that the problem exists with restaurants and with businesses in general. I want to point out to you one restaurant that has just opened recently, Casa Cordova. It's a restaurant in Honolulu. They've had over 1 year of significant problems trying to bring that restaurant to life. It is an amazing thing to find out that if they want to put a small sign 2x2, they're going to pay thousands of dollars extra just so that people can walking by can actually see the restaurant so they can walk in. It's a fabulous place to go. Leon's on La Cañada, same deal. They were forced to put a window when there was another building about 1 foot away. They said, why do I have to put a window? There are regulations where one group in the city doesn't know what the other one is doing. And when you're trying to bring up a restaurant with this significant number of hurdles, it's a humongous amount of additional risk. That is what has to be fixed, and it has not been fixed in many, many years.
Thank you. Mr. Mohill?
I have visited approximately 200 mom and pop stores throughout the city of Montrose, South Glendale, North Glendale, East, West, Kenneth Village. The number one concern of all these merchants is the high water and electric rates. They keep going up and away. And they ask me, Mr. Mohill, why do they keep going up and away? And I tell them, is to take care of the salaries and the pensions of the city employees. We have over 700 city employees with salaries of over $100,000 and $200,000 a year. You need to find the money. They do it by making the merchants and the resident pay more money for electric and water. and permits on everything. The city is driving small businesses out of town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kadikian.
The role of city council is to do what you want to do. What you convey to city council is the obligation of city council to execute on. So if you want restaurants or small businesses, city council should operate in a manner that is effective and efficient for small businesses to come in or for the small businesses that are here to survive. That means being business friendly. One way you can be business friendly is not raise utility rates. Small businesses operate on a 3 to 5% margin. You raise utility rate, you drive them out of business, or you make it more difficult for them to come in. You also need to streamline the process so that we are truly a business friendly, and the only way you can do that is if there is that thought of mind on a city council member who is on city council. I am a small business owner. I have 2 offices that me and my wife operate in each one. And we know what efficiency is, we know what effectiveness is, and we know how to make sure you bring that mentality into the business, into the city.
Thank you, Mr. Kazazian.
Yes. Business friendly is one of my goals. I have said this many, many times before. Our city right now is the most unfriendly business city. It exists almost. You cannot open a business in this city. It takes 2 years, 3 years sometimes, and then after they open, they can't sustain the utility rates. Imagine you open a business, you have to pay $650 a month to read the water meter, just to read it. Whether you use water or not, you have to pay $650 a month because you have a fire line system connected to that. That means a sprinkler system connected for fire safety. If you have a building that's safe, you have to pay. And the reason that is, we spent $71 million putting smart meters in the system. And the system is not finished yet. We still need another $20 million to complete it. That's our problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Friedman.
Thanks. I'm also a small business owner, as is my husband. Of course, we can always do better with small business, but last year the LA Chamber of Commerce said that Glendale was the second most business-friendly city in the entire county of Los Angeles. We are a business-friendly city. That's not the problem on Foothill Boulevard. Look at Montrose and Honolulu. There are so many restaurants there that the other merchants complain that the restaurants are the ones making all the money. The problem with Foothill Boulevard is that it was originally designed to be a highway. Cars go down that street at 50, 55 miles an hour. They don't see those businesses and they don't see those storefronts that they're passing. I believe if we really want to change on Foothill Boulevard and really want a business environment, we have to look at landscaping. We have to look at what they did in La Cañada and making that area more pedestrian friendly with trees, landscaping, benches to create an inviting environment for people to get out of their cars. Until people get out of their cars, you're only going to have big box stores like Osh and Petco survive on Foothill Boulevard. That's what I would like to look at going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Engel.
Thank you. First off, my favorite Mediterranean restaurant is on Foothill Boulevard, and that's the Olive Branch or Olive Garden down on Lauderdale, the corner of Lauderdale. So if you haven't eaten there, it's kind of not a plug. I'm just telling you, you do have some good restaurants, and I think it's our responsibility as the city council, and the reason I say that is to promote and be a cheerleader for our city. So there's my cheer for a restaurant that you already have. I'd agree with Ms. Friedman. People forget that the Foothill Boulevard was originally a highway. It connected Route 66 to Highway 99. And we still note the way that the boulevard's laid out. It was the upper connector between them, with Colorado Street down below being the other connector. So if we're going to change what happens on Foothill Boulevard, we have to change the character of that street. And that involves a discussion with all of you. A lot of you participated in the North Glendale Community Plan. That's a flexible document. As we move forward, if we want more restaurants on Foothill Boulevard, then we need to probably pull that plan out, dust it off, and figure out what we need to do to pull those kind of activities onto your main street.
Thank you. And let's see, I started with Mr. Black, so the next question is to Mr. Barnes. There is recently, the on the
What?
unincorporated.
I'm sorry?
Recently, a sign has gone up on the unincorporated side, meaning just about a half a block from Pennsylvania, for a new smoke shop. That is about 3 blocks from our high school. It hasn't opened yet, so we're not really clear exactly what they're going to contain, but I wonder if you know, is there an ordinance in Glendale about those types of uses? And what are your feelings about those types of uses?
My feelings or my thoughts?
Your thoughts would be good. I guess. Thank you. What are your feelings and thoughts?
Okay. Well, I'm not a smoker. When I was a little boy, my dad caught my brother and I smoking. My brother's 4 years older than I am. And my dad did one thing. He was a smoker, and he said, "You're not going to smoke." And as a result of that smoking, he taught me a real bad lesson, and I would never do it to my son. But he took me in the house and put my hand over the flame of the fire, and he says, "Next time I catch you smoking, you're going to be in trouble." So over my years, I think that one benefit that I learned is every time I smoke, I always get sick. So I don't smoke, and I'm sorry about some people that do. It's still a freedom of our country. The smoke shop, I'm not sure what are, other than we have the state law, we have the city law of non-smoking, and those are difficult to enforce sometimes.
Pardon me, I'm sorry, I should have probably gone a little farther. I think that the question here is whether it will be a smoke shop of cigars and cigarettes, or whether it will be a smoke paraphernalia shop that goes along with the marijuana uses in Sunland. So I think that it is a question in a number of people that I've been talking to here saying, what exactly is going to go in there? Because those other types of uses are still law. You can sell the paraphernalia without selling the marijuana. So that's my question is, what type, are there ordinances in Glendale if you're familiar with them? And if there are or are not, what are the thoughts of the city council?
Well, number one, medical marijuana is legal. We don't sell it in Glendale. However, there are shops that they do mail shops for mail-in, and there's deliveries out of that. I know that. I reported to the police department. And unfortunately, you have residents that smoke in their houses that are smoking marijuana, and it's pretty difficult sometimes to enforce because we don't have enough police officers. That's another story. But I'm going to say that I have friends that started with marijuana and their lives completely changed and their entire families and everything. So I'm against marijuana. I'm against smoking completely. And I would like to see tougher laws on it, but you know what? It's still legal. At some point, hopefully people will find something else to do. I mean, TV, sometimes you get bored to death. I still think if we don't start talking to each other in the neighborhood, shut off the TV and start talking and enjoying life, there's so much that we can still do. And the opportunity is here. So hopefully Locker Center, the county is allowing it, and hopefully it's not a medical marijuana. Anyway,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ajarian.
That's disturbing news, first of all. Glendale has a very strict retail tobacco ordinance and inspection procedure. We have discovered that the establishments that sell tobacco to minors are not the mom and pop shops. Those are not the big offenders. The big offenders are the larger retail stores, the supermarkets, the larger liquor stores, etc. I do not think we are going to be able to prohibit the sale of any paraphernalia as long as there is no dispensing of marijuana along with that. The city of Glendale has banned dispensaries because the city council has banned the dispensaries. We'll just have to keep an extra close lookout. And I know how those kids, my kids went to Rosemont, and at 2:30 they're coming down the hill and they're looking for something to do. We should try and remove that temptation as best we can.
Thank you. Mr. Milano?
So many of the issues that we find concerning that appear to be isolated. The issue about smoking or smoking stores or paraphernalia are really immersed into something much bigger for us. And that is, what is the role of the city and the schools together to try to dissuade, create the programs, create the after-school activities to really create an environment where these kids are not going to be enticed or lured into an area where they're basically doing something to themselves that they shouldn't. I personally run about 5 miles a day along, West Glen Oaks. And I wish we could create the kind of programs that we had the money to create the programs to engage kids and their families into a healthy quality of life. Unfortunately, we misspend our money significantly by the hundreds of millions of dollars, and we don't have the resources so that we can put it in the areas where we give our kids a really good quality of life for their future. That's where I would put my emphasis.
Thank you. Mr. Mohill?
Well, we've gone from smoking to drugs. I was in this room about a year ago. There was a drug program. CV, Center Valley was your organization here, and I wanted to get educated on the drug problems up here. I also met people who belong to Prom Plus, and I got involved with Prom Plus, and I support Prom Plus whenever I have an opportunity. Okay? I used to smoke as a teenager. I used to smoke OPs. That's called Other People's. That's the brand, you know. I couldn't have any money, you know. So I know what smoking. I was the first thing in the morning, last thing at night I smoked. I gave it up when I was about 27 years of age. The issue today is drugs, and smoking is it. I don't think smoking leads to drugs, but drug is drugs, and you know it's a big problem. I try to educate myself as much as possible. It's a big problem, but I think Prom Plus is the way to go, and I support you people.
Thank you. Mr. Kadikian?
Obviously, that kind of a store, I think you indicated it's next to a school.
It is about 3 blocks from the school, but we don't know what exactly they will stock yet because they aren't open.
Right. The community should get involved in finding out exactly what it is coming over there. Because so close to a school, definitely it's going to be a temptation, and that is not the environment that we want to create for our children. What City Council can do, as Mr. Najarian indicated, Councilman Najarian indicated, dispensary of marijuana is not permitted in Glendale, and I want to applaud the City Council and also the City Attorney's Office who stopped recently a marijuana convention that was planned in Glendale. We have to work together to remove these temptations. Smoking, marijuana, obviously, these are not positive things that our youth needs to be involved in or needs to be aware of. What we would like to do is create an environment where our kids are more interested in learning, growing, and being better citizens than these particular activities.
Mr. Kazafian?
You know, having a cigarette shop close to a school, it's like having a liquor store right next to a school. It's the same thing, you know. We don't allow liquor stores next to a school. There's a distance they have to be in. We don't have an ordinance to stop a smoking shop to go next to a school. We need one then, because that is an improper thing to do, to teach our children to smoke. I don't smoke. My father used to smoke, and he died from smoking. And we, all our family, don't smoke because he killed himself smoking. And we're not going to do that. And I think it's about time we change things around and say, not to teach our children to walk by, coming home from school, that they have to go by a smoke shop to look at that. That's an improper atmosphere for a kid. The same thing with alcohol, the same principle. We have to throw alcohol, why can't we do it for a cigarette then? I can all support that, stopping that.
Ms. Friedman?
Thanks. I can't speak to the county ordinance or to that particular smoke shop. I can only speak to Glendale. And as Mr. Najarian said, we do have a very strict ordinance in Glendale, and we take it very seriously. We enforce those ordinances, unlike other cities, and it's important that we do. You also do have a drug and alcohol task force in the Crescenta Valley. I sit on that task force. It's a wonderful group made up of law enforcement from the county and from Glendale, as well as educators, members of the school district, nonprofits from the area, and it's a very cohesive and large group, and they are really doing a lot of educating and planning together to really combat this problem. So there's a lot of activity, and I can tell you that as far as I've been told over the last several years, the drug use of our youth has been tracking downwards in this area, which is very good news. And it's something we have to be very diligent about. Glendale is one of the few cities that does not allow marijuana dispensaries. And you know, when that law was passed, the way that I envisioned it, and I think a lot of people envisioned it, is that people that were really critically sick and who were really suffering would have access to marijuana. That's not what happened. Anybody can get a prescription. Children are getting drugs, and that's why we're keeping it out of Glendale. And it also brings crime. So I think we made the right decision to not allow it.
Thank you. Mr. Engel?
Thank you. Some of you might remember there was a video store on La Crescenta Avenue just below the freeway. that video store was ostensibly renting videos. Well, if you all remember, whenever the issue came up, what was going out in those video boxes wasn't videos. It was drugs to the students coming out of Crescenta Valley High School and so on. When I was in neighborhood services, I think one of the last things we were able to do last year in terms of a major project was to shut that down and actually stop that and work through with our police department, with the real estate community to actually make that happen. So we take a tough stance in Glendale, I can tell you organizationally. We take a tough stance with access to tobacco, as you heard from our two incumbent council members. But I think the larger issue here is if somebody's opening up a drug dispensary here, that would tell me we're in a free market society. There's probably someone saying there's a need for that. So I think we need to look societally and saying, all right, how do we deal with the social need underneath that? And how do we change the behaviors so that there's not a demand for the product that that store proposes to sell?
Thank you. And Mr. Black.
Yes, I know there's a non-smoking ordinance in Glendale. I don't find it that it's been enforced. And when I was at Maple Park with my son a few weeks ago, I got out, and I have asthma. I grew up with asthma. And, cigarette or pipe smoke is wafting, and it immediately makes me short of breath. And I talked to someone at the youth center, and they said, oh, you can't smoke like within 25 yards of the playground, and they're not breaking the rules. But the smoke goes where it wants to go, first of all. I think that law should be revised so the complete area of the park, there's no smoking. And as far as the smoke shop, the first thing I would say is, why don't you all know what they're going to sell there? But yeah, whatever they sell there, just having a smoke shop in general, I think it sends a bad message being so close to a school. And no pun intended, where there's smoke, there's fire. And if they're going to sell drug paraphernalia, that's pretty telltale. But yeah, I'm against that.
Okay, thank you. Now our next question, changing gears a little bit, is for Mr. Najarian. Of course, many of our homes up here in the Crescenta Valley are on a hill. So do you support adding view protection to the hillside ordinance? If so, how would you define it? Protecting a view from a home or protecting the hillside view for those in the valley?
That's a great question, actually, and that really encapsulates the issues that face us on council. We'd like to protect views. Most people think of the view or the vista as your ability to look forward and to see either a downtown vista, a scenic mountain vista. Sometimes folks have oceans that they protect, canyons. It's a very difficult subject to encapsulate and to elucidate. I'm willing to work with the neighborhoods and with the residents to find out exactly what type of view do you want to protect, how much of that view do you want to protect, and create a working group to go forward. It's a very tricky question, but I think if we get our heads together, we can come up with something that reflects what we desire as a community.
Thank you. Mr. Milano?
The issue about views has been a very passionate issue for me, because since I have lived pretty much close to downtown or closer to south of the 134 freeway for many years, it is the view of the hills that we actually enjoy. And yet we're being boxed up by a significant number of very large, super mega buildings out in the downtown area, blocking our view. Look, you go and buy into a neighborhood because you go for the quality of life that you're going to have. And that quality of life is the clean air, the view of the mountains, the view down the valley. Those are important when you make an investment for your own home. And I think that we need to preserve that idea, that when you buy into a neighborhood, the quality of that neighborhood and what is given to you is what we have an obligation to preserve. I very much favor the idea of preserving the views off the hillsides and from the hillsides so that your investment and your quality of life is protected.
Thank you. Mr. Mohill?
Very tough question. There's no one answer. One man's meat, another man's poison, as they always say. In my view, who cares about your view? It's what I want. If there's a situation that no one's happy with, then let the association buy that piece of property to solve the issue of view. The person who bought that piece of real estate first I think should have higher priority. The second person who blocks that view, and he does it legally, then it's up to the city to work with an association to mitigate. And if have be, someone should have to buy that piece of property if that individual bought that piece of property for his view.
Thank you. Mr. Kadikian?
View ordinance obviously is going to be a very difficult issue, but if there's a will, there's a way to get it done. And what I would like is to have the community get involved in that decision, so that we can draft an ordinance that would take care of the concerns of all parties involved, the ones that want to see down the hill or the ones who want to see the hill from down below. But it is, I do believe, when you buy a property, you buy the community with it. And the character of the community has to be maintained, and if view ordinance is one of the objectives that that particular community had reflected, then we should be able to preserve it. But what the difficulty is going to be in the detail. I'd like to work together to come up with an ordinance that balances the equities of all the parties that are going to be involved.
Thank you. Mr. Kazazian?
Yeah, view protection is very important to me. And especially right now, we're building all these mega buildings, like Mr. Morano said. We're blocking everybody's view. You cannot even see the hills anymore, which is a shame, because some of these units, 430 units, 238 units, high buildings with no parking, no landscaping. Even these were all exempt from parking. They called it a set of variance. They call it parking reduction. So they're only got one parking per unit, which is a problem. And that is going to create a view protection in the Glendale, South Glendale area. In your area up here, it's a little bit different because you do have the hills that everybody looks at, and I think that should be maintained as a neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman?
This is an issue that I lived and breathed 5 years when I was on the design review board. It came up all the time. And it's difficult because not everybody agrees on what the particular view is. Is it a view that you might have of an empty lot next to you that you don't want developed? Is it a view that you have from a window in your bathroom? The cities that have view protection tend to have one view that's protected, like a view of the ocean. It's not usually something that's done in commercial districts like an apartment building district. It's not usually done in the flatlands. But I think that there's a desire for people to maintain things that they find that are important to their property. And I think we can do that. But I think codifying it, like saying it has to be your living room or it has to be a view of the downtown, is not going to satisfy what people want. I believe the way to do this is to entrust the design review board to do it because they can look at it more subjectively. If you try to write down exactly what that view is, what room it's protected from, and how large it has to be, everyone's just going to get upset. But if you have reasonable people who are well trained looking and saying, you know something, these people have a really special view in this place, and maybe there's a way that we can build the second floor, the addition the neighbor wants around that, and taking that into account, I think you can satisfy the people's rights to develop their property as well as the homeowners who are existing rights.
Thank you. Mr. Engel?
It may not take a rocket scientist to be a city councilman, but you're hearing the question, it takes a Solomon to sit here and sort this stuff out because there's always multiple sides. I think one of the things when it comes up with talking about view protection is a basic underlying thing that all of us need to have with each other. We need to be considerate of each other. I'm not sure we always need government to step in and take an action to protect a right or protect something where if we just work together to resolve it, it could happen. And I'm always concerned about the growth of government into some of these different arenas. And I've done a little bit on this issue with view protection when I worked in neighborhood services. People have talked about buildings. I can tell you that the number one issue is not buildings, it's trees. And I have seen it happen time and time again as someone comes in and lops off the trees that everybody else liked. This is a very, very complicated issue. A couple of steps have already been taken, and that's the city's rules in our zoning code regarding mansionization and floor area ratio. Indirectly, those have helped protect the views, but not added another layer with this one particular subject.
Thank you. Mr. Black?
Yeah, I'm lucky that I live in Adams Hill where almost all the houses have great views. But like Sam said, there's this giant eucalyptus tree in back of me that I wish would get struck by lightning one of these days.
You don't have a chainsaw, do you?
But there's also, I mean, a lot, like Laura said, it's a case-by-case basis. But a lot of it is like I look out in the sort of valley and I see this giant ugly building that's like a giant warehouse for Ralph's, I think it is. And I'm thinking, is there like not an eyesore protection ordinance too? I think it's not just, you know, it needs to have some curb appeal. I don't think you should, it's a giant boxy sort of building. So I think it goes beyond just trees and second stories. But yeah, I think we should look on it, and like the design review board, we'll do it on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. And then finally, Mr. Barnes.
Well, I think it's funny because it's private property, but if it's public property, they cut their trees, they do it any way they want. We have to go get permits. I know La Crescenta, you don't have the same tree ordinance we do, but Sam alluded to the same thing. I have more problems with trees than anything else. And I have a tree, I've got about between 17 and 20 trees, depending on how you count them, because they keep growing in different spaces. But they block our view. But to go get a permit, they want to know everything about my property. They want to know, and I have 2 trees that need to be trimmed in the front. For 3 years, I've been debating, do I go and get a permit? Why do they want everything about my property? So when we're talking about views, yes, there's views, but the other part of that is trees create a real problem for most of us when we're looking at our homes. And right now, just driving down the mountain, there's all these brand new trees they're going to be putting up on the street. They don't ask the owners, are we going to put the trees in? And they're going to block all of their views on the uphill side. Do they care at city council? Heck no. They don't. Because they don't even ask your permission to put property, because it's right there on the city street. It's in their part.
Thank
Okay?
you.
So private property has some values to it.
Okay, Mr. Milano. Last night, the Crescenta Valley Town Council hosted a forum on the 710 tunnel extension. Did you attend, and what is your stand on the 710 extension and tunnel?
You know, sometimes when I'm concerned about issues of Glendale, whether they are in the north or the south, or various other parts of the city, I generally tend to have a fairly good, solid opinion of what the issues are. The 710 extension is a significant problem because there are issues about pollution, there are issues about noise, and the issue about the redirection of traffic. At the end of the day, it's an issue about quality of life. The community, this community, has stated very clearly what their position has been for a very long time. It was discussed 2 years ago, it was discussed 4 years ago, it was discussed 6 years ago. Very little has changed with regard to that. Sometimes in the process of being in a campaign and being involved in various different demands that we carry, sometimes we'll miss one meeting or another. I missed another one this morning. But it doesn't mean that I do not care about the situation or the opinions of this community.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mohill?
710 freeway. When I was in college, Cal State Los Angeles, 1965, the issue then was the extension of the 710 freeway. And since then, every politician has said, I have to think about it. You name the politician, Larry Zarian, Weaver, you name them all. They all want to think about it. They don't want to make a decision. If I lived up here, I would be most concerned about my quality of life. And I would not want the 710 freeway extending to my backyard because it would affect my quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Klepian?
Thank you. I know that is a huge concern for the people who live here. And I was unable to attend last night because I had another engagement. But does not mean I do not understand. I want to commend Mr. Najarian. He's been fighting like hell against that one, and he deserves all the credit that we could give him on that one. So I would clap for him on that one. And what I would hope to do, if elected, I would fight as hard as Mr. Najarian on that 710 and no on that 710.
Thank you. Mr. Kazazian?
The 710 freeway is going on for many, many years, as far as I can remember. 30 years now, when Caltrans purchased all those properties, the lawsuit was going on. They were going to put it through and they stopped it. It is a problem. It is a problem for this area. Of course, the 210 was not around either. We put the 210 in. I remember we didn't have the 210. We didn't have the 2 either. The 2 freeway didn't exist when I went to Glendale. That's all new. But I believe that is going to bring a lot of traffic, especially up in La Crescenta area, and I'm very much concerned about it, and I'm willing to fight for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman?
Well, I did attend the meeting last night, even though I had to leave my own fundraiser early to do it. I thought it was that important. And I have a No on 710 pin in my purse. I think this is one of the most important issues facing this area. When I went on the city council, I joined the Arroyo Verdugo Council of Governments Committee, which is La Cañada, Glendale, Burbank, Pasadena, and South Pasadena, just because I wanted to deal with this issue along with other regional transportation issues. It's one of our main goals on that Council of Governments is to fight against the 710 as a region, because it's the only way that we can really affect that change. It's really us fighting against so many other cities. We have to stick together as a community, and we have to stick together with those other cities. And despite what's been implied, your city council in Glendale has taken a very definitive stand. We passed a resolution as a city against the 710 extension, and that is on file with Caltrans and MTA, and every other city knows that we have done that. So we are trying to stay in front of this issue as best as we can, because it's so important for our quality of life here in Glendale.
Thank you. Mr. Engel?
I'm going to come back to what the question was, and that was, did you attend last night? Yes, I did attend last night, and for the entire presentation. And the second part of the question, are you against the 710 tunnel?
What is your stand?
What's my stand? I'm against the 710 tunnel extension. It's very simple. Yes, and against the 710 tunnel extension.
Thank you. Mr. Black?
I had to work last night, so unfortunately I couldn't be there. You know, I get the air quality reports emailed to me every day, and I see it's yellow or it's orange or it's red. It's hazardous to breathe, and it's a travesty. I don't know, all the carcinogens and everything from the cars, and it just gets worse and worse. And I am flatly against it. Even when they did a small little section of the 5 near my son's school, Franklin Magnet, they ripped up trees overnight, didn't tell anybody. They're building this giant, ugly sound barrier, retaining wall, whatever, and it's a mess. Just a little section of the freeway they've been working on for like 9 months, and it's just a horrible mess. So I can't even imagine what you guys, the nightmares that we'd have. I'm flatly against it.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes?
I lived next to a freeway after my parents bought a home, so incidentally I was out illegally driving one night, and red lights went off, and it was said get out of the car, and I moved my hands as I was told, and I'm laying on the wet grass waiting, and turned around and looked, and it was the cops giving someone a ticket on the freeway. So I've experienced that evidence of life, and so no, I'm not for the 710 freeway. But I do have a question for all of us as we're looking at this. There's billions of dollars at stake here, and one of the questions I keep in the back of my mind keep popping up, and I'd like some other feedback because I'm against this. But if we're putting so much attention on dropping this, or if they do to the 710 instead of going on the surface, how about if we have like Dr. Dre and Beats Electronic? They have a neutralizing system. What happens if we get that? What happens if we get something to take the air coming out of those cars and bring it back? But there's no money because we are pushing them some other direction. There's billions of dollars here, and yet is there going to be a change coming? And do we lose because we're fighting for them down there, and all of a sudden we lose, they do a tunnel, and then all of a sudden we have all this stuff coming up? Is there something happening that we may need to take a look at? I think we have a couple questions in there.
Thank you so much. And finally, Mr. Najarian.
Thank you. I was invited to be a speaker at that event. Let's make one thing clear. We are fighting for us when we fight against the 710 tunnel. And I'm very heartened by some of the comments by my colleagues. I extend my hand of support to Mr. Kadikian, Ms. Friedman, Mr. Engel, any other of the candidates that is willing, once they are elected to council, to fight against the 710 freeway with me. This is a fight we can win. We have to stand united. It is not an easy fight. The pro-710 people may get involved in this election. Believe me, folks, there's a lot at stake for them. We stick together as a community and we fight, we can win and beat that tunnel.
Thank you. Now I start with Mr. Mohill. The arts in Glendale has been emphasized in recent years. Do you think North Glendale should be included in that conversation? The arts in Glendale have been emphasized in recent years. Do you think North Glendale should be included in that conversation?
Of course, North Glendale should be included in the arts. So to South Glendale, East, West, we're a large community. I think all parts of the city of Glendale should be involved in the arts. Can I tell you, I just believe that the arts should be everywhere, okay? There should be music in the parks. In fact, I think they cut most of those things out right now because of the budget. We used to have a lot of concerts in the park. We don't have that anymore. There's art as far as drawing, there's art as far as music. It's a no-brainer.
Thank you. Mr. Kadikian?
Mr. Mohill said it. It's a no-brainer. Of course we want arts, and we want arts in North Glendale as well. It enriches our lives. Art is a reflection of our culture that we project to everybody else. So of course we want to emphasize arts. We want to emphasize it in North Glendale, South Glendale, everywhere that we can. It is such a positive experience. I just can't think of why would you not want it. So it's a straightforward answer on that.
Thank you, Mr. Kazazian.
Yes, arts is very important, especially as an architect. I feel that we are not doing enough for arts. North Glendale should be all included with South Glendale. Right now we have ignored South Glendale from arts. We're building these big, huge mega buildings with no open space, no art. The boxy designs, it's gonna, we're gonna be in big trouble coming down. You're gonna be driving down Central Avenue, you're gonna see all these 6, 7, 8-story buildings, property line, the balcony is sticking out. Is that art? That is piece of garbage, some of these designs. It's not art, there is no art. Art is a beautification of not only the art itself, but also the building has to be complied to an art. That's what it becomes to. And the same thing you have over here. Foothill Boulevard, your building should be itself the art too, plus the art inside it, plus the lobbies, the balconies, the outside. That's what's important, landscaping. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman?
Well, I like to think that one of the reasons that art is happening more in Glendale now is because of my influence on City Council. But let's not sell the North short. You have the largest art show in all of Glendale and Honolulu every year, which is the Arts and Crafts Show. It's by far the largest we have in the entire city, and you have it here in your area. So let me tell you a few things that we've done in the last couple of years since I've been elected to encourage the arts. First of all, we passed a new ordinance that takes a fee for large developers and puts them right into an art fund. As that money builds up, that can be used for art programs citywide. The city has never had a real funding source for the arts, and this is the first time that it's going to have that. Secondly, using our redevelopment agency in the downtown, I brought a program to the city that put temporary art exhibits into vacant storefronts. So it gives people a cultural experience while making it seem like there are no empty storefronts in our city. It's a great way to deal with blight while encouraging the arts. That's the way I see that the arts can be used as an economic development tool, the same way it is here with the Arts and Crafts Show, where it's not only a wonderful cultural amenity, but it brings people to our city. And that's the way we need to look at the arts in Glendale. Thank you.
Mr. Engel?
I think sometimes when we talk about the arts, I get a little bit of a concern because there are art things already going up here. And if you're not availing yourself of the productions at the middle schools and at the high school from those kind of things, you're missing a huge opportunity, one, to have a very cheap night out, but also to enjoy some very talented performers. And I think, I want to recognize that that stuff's going on here. Certainly the entire city should be included in any discussion on what we're doing for the arts. My wife and I go to a place in Pasadena, much like Laura talked about, just happen to go to Pasadena sometimes, called the Coffee Gallery. If you've ever been to the Coffee Gallery in Pasadena, it's a coffee house that has entertainment in the back, and it is a heck of a fun place. They serve coffee, I think they serve pie. But the best part is the entertainment. Those kind of little venues would work really well on Honolulu. Those kind of venues would work really well on the low density commercial on Foothill Boulevard. I'd like to see us do that. Last but not least, the other thing that happens up here, you have a phenomenal number of people who live in far north Glendale that are in the Glendale Corral. The sad part is, where the Glendale Corral performs? Pasadena. We need to get them back to Glendale, and that could happen right here, guys.
Thank you. Mr. Black?
Yeah, I'm very pro-arts. I think a good way to jumpstart that and also to pump some revenue into this community would be to get the filmmakers from running away to Canada and come back to LA by giving them better tax incentives and coming back not just to LA but to Glendale, and specifically North Glendale. Why not? It's a gorgeous community, and I'd like to see that.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes?
Thank you. Again, I heard the word fee for the arts. Maybe that's one of the reasons why we're having such a hard time bringing business in. Also, those fees are very high. arts are very important. In the schools, we've cut the budget, and there's not a lot of communication between there's communication, but not enough between our city council and the school board. Not even the school board, but getting it in. We have the foundation, there's a lot of money being spent for that. But I have a question for everybody. How many of you personally spend money to donate into the arts every year? I mean, in reality, please. And what I keep wondering is, as we're making decisions, who on our decision-making process is actually reaching in their own pocket and putting money out? When you're putting it out, when you're spending it to see how it's going to work, there's more responsibility to it. That's called controlling money. And at this point, I think we're just spending money. We're not controlling money, because money's controlling us at our city level. That's something that has to stop, and that's how you promote art, because you start controlling money and you have a reason for it, and things happen from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Najarian.
I see a lot of art in North Glendale. The problem is I don't see it very well coordinated. We've got an excellent ensemble, the Rosemont Middle School Ensemble. We've got dance studios. We've got art studios up and down Foothill. We've got a rich ethnic diversity in North Glendale. And those ethnicities can contribute and do contribute on their own to the art scene. I'm in favor of creating a North Glendale Arts Council where they can come together and put on shows either at Rockhaven or at the county park and perpetuate the development and focus more on arts and coordinate all these different types of arts together, because we have a lot of art, we're just not that well coordinated.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Milano.
I think that we made some few strides in the right direction, but we are way from really addressing the issue of the funding, the proper funding of arts. It just doesn't happen in London, not by far. In the summer, we go to Levitt Pavilion in Pasadena, or we go to Griffith Park to watch the Shakespeare ensemble. What happened to our Shakespeare theater right here in Noisy Lynn? We lost it. We talk the talk, but we really don't put the funding that is truly necessary to create a truly vibrant, permanent place. You want to see good type of art programs, you go to Palm Desert. You have an idea of how you can create really great communities with sculptures that make something truly interesting and permanent. We don't find it, not by a long shot, because we overspend in areas in Glendale that has constrained our ability to create a quality of life. Look, there's a lot of opportunity here because we have so much talent. But at the end of the day, we really do not have the budgeted amounts necessary to create a vibrant community.
Thank you very much. May I just make an announcement on my own? The Crescenta Valley High School has Mystery of Edwin Drood this weekend, and our Mountain Avenue Elementary is doing Hansel and Gretel for free at Roosevelt Middle School, 3 and 7 o'clock on Saturday. My daughter's please. And yeah,
Good commercial.
I've got to put a point in there. So the last question, we'll do one more question. We'll start with Mr. Kadikian. A pedestrian was killed on Montrose Avenue a few years ago in an unsolved hit and run. How would you make the Crescenta Valley safer for pedestrians?
Obviously, we can install traffic calming devices to make sure that the speed is controlled. We need also to better educate the community about the risks that are involved. Sometimes it's the young ones who are overexcited about their car, but sometimes it's even the adults who are in too much eagerness to get to work and rush. So we have to create an environment that promotes and educates the risks. At the same time, we should implement traffic calming devices so that we can have an environment that is safe. Safety should be the primary purpose of City Council, and promotion of that, implementation of that, and finding revenues, finding sources of money for that is very important, and I would be committed to that.
Thank you. Mr. Kazazian?
Pedestrian traffic is an issue, and traffic calming is one way to do it, and policing is a better way to do it. And as I said, by one of my meetings, magnetic fields in the ground shut those cars down when they go too fast. Very simple. That technology exists. You can shut them down. You can shut their computers down. If I can do it, they can do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman?
Well, traffic safety has been a huge issue in Glendale for many years, and the city council, even before I was on it, has been really trying to tackle this problem as best they can. And it's not going to be any one solution, it's going to be a mix of solutions. It's going to have to be education, enforcement, engineering, encouragement, evaluation. Lots of things go into making our streets safer, and we've been doing that. And you've seen some of that. You've seen the new crosswalk in front of Trader Joe's. You've seen Safe Routes to Schools, the grant program that's been making the area around our schools safer all over Glendale. And that's something that we need to continue pursuing. I do believe in engineering, but I also believe in enforcement. You can't have one without the other. And we do enforce. We send police all over the city. And let me tell you what happens. Someone will call us and ask us to send them into their neighborhood. The police will go in, and the first 10 people that they catch will say, wait a minute, I'm the one who called you. You shouldn't be stopping me. We all have to take responsibility for this, ourselves and for our children, and say it's not people that are coming in from other communities that are causing this problem. It's all of us, and we need as a community to take responsibility and also to continue to take action.
Thank you. Mr. Engel?
Thank you. I agree with Ms. Friedman, and you can't always engineer safety as much as there's all kinds of tools and stuff that are available, including doing bump outs to slow traffic down, including doing some S-turns to slow traffic down. Those are all things, but I think it ultimately comes down to changing our behavior and doing that. I think it's a social problem, and we need to focus on that. The city's done some phenomenal things in the last couple of years in dealing with the Safe Routes to School, which is a federal grant that we've actually applied to dealing with making anybody walking to school, adults or children, safer. The challenge we have in the foothill communities is we have a lot of neighborhoods without sidewalks. You have to recognize that up here. Having worked in neighborhood services, there's a lot of neighborhoods that don't want sidewalks. So you've got that yin and the yang on that issue up here whenever we talk about this. And that's why I come back to what we've got to do is really focus on behavioral change. Because if we want to keep our amenities the way they are, the only other way to tackle that is figure out how we change ourselves to make our streets safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Black?
You got to know the particulars of that horrible incident, but it is a two-way street. It's like the pedestrian is responsible not to jaywalk and all that. So we need to get the message out there that the jaywalking is very dangerous, not just a shortcut. And I know in our area, Southern Glendale, we have a lot of those flashing pedestrian crosswalks, which are very effective, or the blinking lights. I know you all don't have that luxury in a lot of the streets, but if there's a way to get funding to do more of that, or that would be very beneficial.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes?
Okay, personal experience, I hate to use that again, but we went from my office just to 3 blocks away, and some man was walking his dog without a leash. And as I came across, there was another dog that came out of a property with a leash, and it darted straight in front of my car, and I killed that dog. And I got to tell you, for months, I had to write a poem on it because it touched my heart so much, because I know what happened with the man. He was in a medical outfit, and picking up his dog to get it to him, it was his ignorance. It came down to that. And I used to train dogs, another one of my little jobs, and my dogs were trained not to. And that night, I've never taken my dogs off leashes since then. But you can't stop ignorance, folks. I'm sorry about that. But I will say this. Our city council was supposed to hire 100 new police officers. They didn't do it. All they did is hire enough to replace. We're at 1952 levels. So when you're saying we're going to get policemen, they're at the schools right now. We don't have enough police, and that's because of funding. And when you sit down and look at how much money they're spending on stuff,
Thank
two
you.
things, $600,000 a year that could go for more traffic
Thank
officers.
you. Mr. Najarian?
That was a tragic incident, and if I'm not mistaken, it happened New Year's Day, January 1st. The gentleman was trying to cross the street. He was halfway through the crosswalk, and a monster not only didn't see him, but hit him, and then fled the scene, left him on the road to die. I'm not sure how much education, enforcement, or engineering could have stopped that sort of incident. But those 3 E's are the general solution that we've heard. We brought the University of California, Berkeley down. I invited them down, and Glendale received a grant for their services to have a seminar with our traffic enforcement officials and our community members. It's something we all have to work on all the time, work with our children, And even myself, when I'm driving, preoccupied with these forms, I insist, I keep pinching myself, be extra careful, look out for the pedestrians every single moment. It just takes one lapse, one daydreaming instant to hit someone and cause an accident. We must be vigilant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Milano.
For a long time, I have been promoting the idea that we need to make accountability of various very different departments within the city, whether the police department, public works, and so on. Has anyone here seen recently the North Area Command of the police department as far as traffic injuries? I saw it a couple of weeks ago. The hotspots in this particular area, the closest one are on Honolulu, right smack in the middle of the business area. Another hotspot that we have is on Honolulu as you're approaching the Los Angeles towards Lowell. Another very hot spot. We also have spots on Lauderdale. If we happen to know what the hotspots are, and if we look at the City of Glendale's police department reports, we're going to find out that for year after year, about 110 people get injured, and it has not changed in 4 years. Why? Because it's not about the money that you put in there, it's about the accountability that you put behind the police department and other departments to produce results.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Mulhill.
In the months I've been campaigning, I've been knocking on doors, asking residents, what is your concern? First was high water bills. Second was high electric bills. And the third was, we want more policing. And I said, I do too. But when a retired person from the police department makes just as much money as an active duty policeman, we have no money for law enforcement. It's going to the pensions of the retired policemen. We need to, if we can get our house in order financially, we'll have more money for policing. That's the third concern of most residents: water, electricity, and law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will have a 1-minute wrap up, and since I started at the beginning of the evening with Mr. Barnes, I'll start with Mr. Nagarian.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You have an election. We have an election April 2nd. That election will determine the future of Glendale. Do we want to continue the path that Glendale is on? In my opinion, Glendale is a great city, and we're working hard to make it even greater. I think that the answer is we should continue on the path that we're on. I know the issues. I've served you diligently for 8 years, twice as mayor. I will fight like hell to stop that 710 tunnel. I will do everything in my power to make sure we remain the best city in all of Southern California. And I ask for one of your votes on April 2nd.
Thank you. Mr. Milano.
It is a very tough task to ask of residents to become fully informed. During the 4-year period that a council person is in office, they spent $3 billion of our tax money. And for those who watch carefully, you will know that this city has been wasting our money by the hundreds of millions of dollars. Last year alone, we lost $90 million on the pension obligation. In the last 2 years, we lost about $180 million on the post-employment health that we have for retirees. Those are significant numbers that eventually cause us to lose our quality of life because there's no money available. In a few minutes that you spend here today, you learn snippets about what has transpired in the city of Glendale. I urge you to become more involved, learn more about the city, and you will get a different perception to just a few statements that were made here today. It is my hope that you become more engaged so that a smarter voter can make a smarter decision. My name is Herbert Milano, and I'm running for city council to correct this problem.
Thank you. Mr. Mulhill.
My fellow Glendalians, if you want to have your water rates increased, please vote for the incumbents. If you want to have your electrical rates increased, please vote for the incumbents. Of course, I would like your vote, but for the good of Glendale, I urge you to vote for any of the non-incumbents. The incumbents are not here for you. They're here for themselves and the unions and the major land developers that support them. We cannot expect the one that created the problems to fix the problems. We need to send a clear message tonight. Business as usual is not acceptable. Let me repeat myself. Business as usual is not acceptable. Thank you. My name is Mike Mogill, number 7 on the ballot.
Thank you. Mr. Kadikian?
Thank you, everybody, for attending today. My name is Roland Kadikian, and I know once elected to City Council, we will have to deal with many different issues that we discussed here today. But what I want to point out to you about what I did tonight here, I didn't say everything was wrong about Glendale. I didn't say I can't work with anybody. I even commended some of the people who are running against me. And that's what it means to be a city council person who can work with everybody to come up with a solution. The problem I see is finances. And if we get that in order, the other problems can be solved. And the way I talk today, the way I expressed myself, my willingness to commend the others shows that I can work with other people. And I want to do that so that we can get our finances in order, so that we can make this city more viable for the future, so that we can leave something better for our children. My name is Roland, and I'm going to get Glendale rolling. That's how you can remember me.
Yes, my name is Aram Kazajian. I'm very much concerned about the finances. As I said, Glendale Water and Power has lost millions of dollars due to the negligence of our council people didn't pay attention. Even if they knew that they were going to lose money, they didn't pay attention. Our downtown stores are shutting down. A lot of them were, like it was said, they put arts in it because they can't afford to pay the utility bills. The schools are going to suffer. Imagine children, we're going to increase the water rate, we're going to increase the electricity rate. What is going to happen? They're going to have to cut teachers down because they can't afford to pay for it. There's no way they can pay for it. The public cannot afford to pay for it. They have given Crusoe $14.5 million end of last year. They called it Nordstrom's obligation. It's in the books. They never said anything about it. It's in the books. It says that. They gave Lumley Theaters free land, $7 million worth of land, free, plus $2.6 million on him to say, oh, I want to build you 40 parking spaces when I only require 500. Okay, that's the problem.
Thank you very much. Ms. Friedman?
Thank you. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished in Glendale, and I'm very proud of our city. This is a tough time. It's a tough time for citizens of this country. It's a tough time for cities all across California. But I would take our financial situation of our city and our utility against just about any city around us. We have dealt with our challenges head on. We have enacted pension reform. We have balanced our budget each and every year. This year we're going into what we believe is a flat budget where we won't even have to make any cuts. And there are cities going bankrupt up and down California. The difference is that Glendale has been fiscally responsible. And I think it shows. It shows in the fact that you still receive excellent services from your city each and every day. Bloomingdale's is opening one store in the United States this year. One store, and it's in Glendale. That shows you how we treat our businesses. I can give you the names of dozens of businesses that have opened here in Glendale during the recession in the last 2 years because we have attracted them into our city. And that, of course, feeds into the health of jobs and all of our residents. We need to continue on this path. Don't let anyone tell you you have a bad city, because you don't. You have a city you should be proud of. Thank you.
Very much, Mr. Engel.
Thanks, Sharon, for doing a great job keeping us on track.
Thank you.
As we close tonight, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out, spending your evening with us. I'd like to say our band of brothers and sisters up here, we kind of move now as a group just about every place we go. And I'm starting to see more of them than I'm seeing of my own spouse. Yeah, we probably should carpool. I had something happen about a month ago that I think it's important to tell you as part of my closing statement. It's a little bit different for you. I had the parent club from Crescenta Valley Baseball contact me and say, Mr. Engel, you worked with the city for a long time. We're coming to you because we've got a problem. Our baseball season starts in 2 weeks, and the city will not let us maintain the field. Matter of fact, they're not even letting us on Stingle Field to be able to do that. And they called me because they said, we think you can make something happen. I'm here to tell you that I did make something happen. Crescenta Valley played their first game on Stingle Field, and it's because of the ability to work with everybody and actually resolve a problem. That kind of problem solving is what I want to take forward with the Crescenta Valley and represent all of you in the Crescenta Valley, but be a problem solver for everyone in the city of Glendale on our next city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Black.
I'd like to get Glendale's budget fixed by trimming the fat, bringing transparency back. I'd like to see GWP not just pretend to embrace, but really embrace the solar program. The crime rate just spiked really high last month in Glendale, I read. I'd like to get safety as a priority and get no cuts to the police force. I'm a great team player. I'm compassionate, but I won't back down from something I think is right. And I'd like to make Glendale an amazing place to live, work, and play. So my website, vote4jefferson.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Barnes.
Okay. Thank you for taking your time this evening. It's important to all of us. The reason I'm thinking of this is, you can't spend money. You can't let go of it like that and not have accountability and responsibility. That's why I'm running, is that for 35 years, I have had to sit across tables, across from banks, savings loans, with families all over the city, over and over again. And never one transaction was ever the same. So you have to think, you have to be able to have contacts, you have to make things happen. And when I say about Dr. Dre, I can pick up the phone and talk to Dr. Dre tonight. There's things like that that I have made over the years of meeting people and getting them into my war chest, if you want to call it that. There's things that we have to do, and it doesn't mean you have to be on council to make it work. It means you have to be able to be out in the community and know the folks that you have in our community. We have some really strong people in this community, and we can get to them, and there's a lot of people that made money in this down market, lots of money in this down market. And it's how you think about the positive results of what you're doing. That's what I can do for City Council in the city of Glendale. I love this city. I have 6 children that went through all the schools here, and I've been married for over 31 years. My wife was born here, and my father-in-law was born here. It's a long term. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank everybody for coming this evening. A couple announcements. I forgot to mention in the beginning of the meeting, we also have another petition in the back, an issue that didn't come up. That's to save the Verdugo Hills Golf Course from development. That does happen to be just a few blocks outside of Glendale in the city of Los Angeles, but it's near and dear to all of us in all jurisdictions up here. And I invite all of you to come back at our next month's meeting. That's on March 28th, same time, same place, different cast of characters. We're having the candidate forum for the Glendale Unified School District, which incorporates not only the city of Glendale, but also the unincorporated area. And there are fewer candidates there, although there are three slots opening. I believe there are just 7 candidates. And so at the conclusion of that candidate forum, we'll hear from the 2 city clerk candidates, incumbent Artie Kasakian and Stephanie Landrigan. So please join us again here next month, same time. And again, thank you very much, and let's give a hand to all of our candidates for stepping up.
So, what are the big issues, boys? I'm going to quiz you. What are the big issues today? What's the number 1 issue? I'm asking the Boy Scouts.
Yes, so it's 13 stacks of 9. And
So what is it? Let me ask him what the number 1 issue is.
For next time?
sure, actually, these are Sherry's, but yeah, we should hang on to it for next time. That's right,
Well, they should.
Laura, yes, my darling, you're the only one who protects. How am I going to shut up? Please vote for Laura, not
Who do you Come here.
Walked out, they were right in front of me, they were so upset. I was yelling.
Yeah, I know.